Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. I'm Aaron Moats. With our most recent episode on Star by Star, we've now reached the halfway point of the New Jedi Order series, and I thought it would be kind of cool to bring the whole gang in for a little roundtable and see what my 5 co-hosts are thinking going in to the second half of the NJO. I want to start with the 3 that haven't read the series before. Kat, I'll start with you since it's been the longest since you've been on the show. How are you enjoying the series?
I love it and I hate it. They've made me fall in love so hard and then taken it away. I was so excited to get into this book because it is definitely a big one, and I have big emotions about it, so I'm ready to talk about it, but I think they're doing a bang-up job so far.
Scott, how have you enjoyed the first 9 books of the series?
9 books. It's a lot. I'm enjoying it. I think it's really good at capturing a big, sweeping story with a lot of different engagement points. I think it excels there. I'm really enjoying that, and how connected the worlds feel and everything. There are some things, well, maybe we'll get into some of those things later, but I have trouble following a lot of the battle sequences. A lot of the action is described, and I find myself giving up sometimes. And I don't know whether it's just because I'm trying to go fast or whether I'm just like, well, okay, they won. The outcome is what's important, not necessarily the battle maneuver. Because I do find they do a good job when they find a new strategic advantage that they can, take that they can use to their advantage. They do a good job of explaining those, but like the little details, sometimes I just let them go. But in general, I like the sweeping plot line a lot. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see what it all means for the Jedi at the conclusion. That's what I care most about, right?
Yeah. Now, K2, you and I spoke a little bit about the whole first half of the series in our last episode, but just to reiterate, how are you doing? Have you recovered from the last book you got?
No, I have not, and I don't plan on recovering. And I am quite happy that I have the last book in the series because I'm planning on it being And They Lived Happily Ever After. Because if I bury more people, we're going to have words. But I really expected this to be like sweet little Jedi comic booky stories. I didn't know what I was getting into. And killing Chewbacca, I should have known, but I didn't. I thought it was a gimmick as a plot line. I didn't realize that they would be so brutal when they told us these stories. But I think it's fantastic. It is well exceeding my expectations. But I'm 100% with Scott. The battle stuff, sometimes I'm like, when is the end? When is it over? Because I really can get quite lost in some of it. And then some of it I can picture perfectly. So it's really interesting how different it is. And I think it could be by author too. So I started the new book, and not to give anything away, but there's a sequence in there that I could follow quite perfectly, and right at the kind of the beginning. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But then some of the stuff in Star by Star, I had to read 3 times, and then I just said, I don't think that's the point of reading the book. Let's just keep moving on. So anyway, I think it's fantastic, and it's way, way better than
a lot of the layout of the ship in Star by Star too. Just totally lost me. Like, I don't know where you are. It's a big ship. You're getting places fine. I stopped trying.
Oh yeah. Are you talking specifically of the world ship on Merkur?
Yeah.
I mean, I just assume it's a world ship, and they talk about it orbiting the planet. So I kind of always envisioned it like a small moon.
Yeah. They give a size for it, actually.
I think part of the point was for you to feel like you're lost because the characters were lost.
That might have been part of it. But too, at the end when they're explaining I think of it like a honeycomb of the Dove and Basalt thing, I did not get that at all. I'm like, all right, something's happening that they're like jumping around on. Okay.
Matt and Jay, like me, you guys have read this before. I think it's pretty obvious that I've read it the most. I think this is my 4th time through the series. How are you enjoying it here this second time? Jay, I'll start with you.
I'm loving it. I remember bits and pieces of this series. So in some ways it's great because I'm familiar with it, and other times it's like almost reading it for the first time because it's been so long. And so I remember these details, just not where they happen necessarily, like in what book. But it also, like, I was such a huge Star Wars fan that this is almost like, it feels like coming home when I'm reading this. It's just comfort, and even with all the stuff going on, it's like, to me, this is some of the best Star Wars out there.
Matt, how about you?
I'll tell you what, Jay, I agree with a lot of what you said, but I've never been more stressed out reading a book, I think, than I was during the Star by Star Anakin is injured and still trying to fight through it sequence. I was so stressed out, you guys. I was just like, every page just hurt. Ugh. But you asked how I felt about it this time. When when I was younger, I listened to an album by a guy named Pete Yorn, and I thought the album was lame because I wasn't ready for it. And then I come back later and realize how great the album really is. That's how I am with the New Jedi Order. The way that they tell stories, like Scott said, the way that they're able to dig into each of these characters and give them the due credit that they deserve, because there's 19 books. You don't have to skim over everybody. K2 and Aaron, you guys talked about in your last episode how a lot of these Jedi that were part of the Merker strike force were introduced really quickly and then they were dead. But you still, even though that's true, you still found yourself caring about them. They do a great job of introducing their relationships to each other and their insights and their motivations in a way that makes you go, holy crap, I love this guy. I hate to see them die.
Yeah. And
yet you only met them 30 pages before.
I totally agree. And Aaron made that point. He's like, they're new. And I was like, I love them. And I was like, I want to see where they go. And I want to see them get married. And
yeah. I want to get their Christmas card.
This is Will getting killed by the others all over again.
So I'm more prepared for it, Aaron, and I'm excited about where it's going. Like Justin, I remember the main points, but I don't remember how they got there. So a lot of it's new for me. So I'm loving it.
One of the first things you said, Matt, was you're now ready for this. What weren't you prepared for the first time you read the New Jedi Order?
I wonder if I was so young that it was kind of like K2, where I was just expecting the good guys to come in and clean house, just like the Crystal Star or Darksaber or any of those other Legends Star Wars books that we'd grown accustomed to. And to get this more gritty look, I don't know if Star Wars was ready for the New Jedi Order when it came out. It's gritty. It's human. The philosophizing that they do with the Force and the motivations of the Yuuzhan Vong and the politics, it's pretty advanced stuff, and I don't think I was ready for it back when I first read it.
Kat, what were your expectations when you decided to join this endeavor, to read 19 books in about 9.5 months?
I honestly don't know what I was expecting. I was coming off of Clone Wars, so I knew there was potential for some really good character action in there, but we were meeting all of these new characters, so I really didn't know what direction they were going to go in. And I feel like they still, like, even in 9 books, we go through so many twists and turns with these characters, and especially after Star by Star, it's like almost restarting, like right after Chewbacca's death. Like, what is going to happen to these characters now that one more person that you thought, like K2 had said, had plot armor? I was all prepared for the plot armor to encase some of these other people and like going forward, and that is not the case. So I'm worried about absolutely everybody, and I'm pre-devastated for any other deaths and destruction that may occur.
Well, all I can say is keep that in mind. That's all.
That's garbage.
Harbinger
Keep
of
those
doom.
tears.
Hey,
Keep
Aaron,
those tears
Aaron,
on hold.
can I ask Scott and Kat and K2 a question?
Sure.
Guys, how have you felt about the callbacks to the histories of some characters? I'm thinking in particular of like Ten El-Ka, the Jedi with one arm. Is it confusing when they call back to old stories? Because like Aaron and Justin and I have read a lot of those. So when they call back to old things that happened prior to these books, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Has it been difficult for you guys, or do you feel it's been written in a way that you get it and you're fine with it and you're ready?
Doesn't bother me. I think I just recognize I don't know that story, but it's relevant and I keep moving. I think probably because of the pace we have to read these books too. I don't necessarily over and every once in a while I have looked at Wikipedia, but I do so in a way that I won't
It's
get
hard.
spoiled. Because I don't want to be spoiled on anything.
Well, except for that one thing about Nominor back on your first book.
The Nominor thing I did, but it wasn't terrible. But I didn't realize I was spoiling myself on that one. But that just made me feel like it was like a very episode or something. But yeah, I don't know, Scott or Kat.
I definitely think that they kind of do really good little teasers that make me want to eventually go back and read those other stories where that action happens. I think some of the authors are a little bit better than others at it, but especially about like Ten El-Ka, I think they kind of give you that little tidbit of don't you want to find out how this happened and kind of the story around it. So I think they do a pretty good job of putting that in there.
I haven't tried to pay attention close enough whether it's author by author how it varies, but it seems like there's two ways to do it. There's one way where they just kind of reference back to and they're like, hey, if they want to figure it out, they'll go read those books, and maybe this is a little tease to get them to do that. But most of the time, they give you kind of just enough to explain what happened such that you have context without going into the whole story. And I appreciate it when they do that. I really like when they do that. It makes those characters richer. It makes the world feel more lived in, and the characters not, Will in the Night's Watch, even though he feels pretty lived into sometimes. But I really appreciate when they do that. Right, I enjoy that. I'm willing, despite the pace we have to go, I'm willing to spend, the extra 2 paragraphs reading about how those things happened. It interests me. But when they don't, it's just kind of like, okay, little tidbit. I don't need.
Onward.
I don't need to know more. It's okay. I don't let it distract me.
See, I want to chime in on this too because, like, I remember reading a lot of those books, but again, I'm seeing these, and something in my brain is going, "Hey, you read this 20 years ago, and did I remember when I picked up Vector Prime why Kip Duran was important? No." And it's the little drops that they've got where I kind of like, oh yeah, I vaguely remember that series where that stuff happened.
It's crazy. They're even like a lot of them, unless you're playing really close attention and are like a Legends expert like Aaron, you are not going to catch some of these things. Like that Rodian that got killed on the book that I just covered, Edge of Victory 2.
Yeah.
And remember Anakin and Tahiri went to try to help him, and he managed to whisper the word before he died. That's a character from a previous book. He was in, it was I, Jedi or something, Aaron. And
yeah, I, Jedi.
He went on to become a Jedi, and they throw him in here. They do that all the time with these little guys, and I think it's really cool how they find different ways to bring these very minor characters in and just give them little spots and little moments to shine.
I, Jedi, just another little tidbit. One, I can't stand that book, but whatever.
We talked about that one. Yep.
Mainly because
we're not friends anymore.
I know. It's probably Jay's favorite.
It is one of my favorites.
It's a Corran Horn centric book. It's written in first person, which is what really turns me off. I don't like first person. I try to get past it, but there's a lot of times I don't.
And who's the central whose person is it in?
Yeah, it's I. No, it's Corran Horn. He's the guy that at the beginning of the New Jedi Order, he was the guy at Ithor when Ithor was destroyed, and then
With the cool extending lightsaber.
Yeah, he took the blame for it and went into self-exile.
Anakin and Tahiri's chaperone
In
last
the book you covered.
Yeah, he shut him in a locker for 7 minutes in heaven.
Yeah.
And
Is that where
saved
they
their
made out?
lives.
Yep.
I can't believe you guys took him to task for that.
He was there for the romance.
I didn't.
I did.
The dad
I did.
of that group
I did.
not me. I'm
did.
not. I don't have any
The
children.
dad of a 14-year-old girl did. I was like, what were you
Look at
thinking?
her.
Let's get the bad stuff out of the way first. Is anything not working for you guys in these stories? Scott, you alluded to it at the top of the show. Anything not working
Well,
for you?
writing wise, I was talking about the battle sequences and some of the things that I just don't think are. I don't want to take the authors to task or anything. I can't get my head around some of them. Story wise, the thing I find that I'm probably alone. I don't love the Yuzon Vong period. I do appreciate they've gotten into their philosophy a lot more in the more recent books, and I like that. I like where that's going. I think actually what I don't like is the fact that they've set them up. They set them up in the early books to be like these battle master warriors that can take Luke and Mara on one and nearly beat them. To now, the Jedi just kind of shred through them now, right? And same thing with the Voxen. At the very beginning of this book, the one we just finished, the Voxen seem like this nearly impossible force to contend with. And by the end of this book, they're just kind of cutting through them 5 at a time. And
Well, they did kill 9 Jedi.
well,
Or 8. I'm sorry. They killed 8.
some people killed. You mean on the ship? So 9 Jedi died, or 8 Jedi died. But
Yeah.
the Voxen didn't get them all. But I don't know. And I guess there's some degree like you have to do that, right? Like if you want to have battles, people have to die, and you don't want it to always be your heroes. So, you got to make them beatable. But the way they set them up, they felt like they were anytime you were going into a battle with a Yuzon Vong, you were in trouble, right? And it doesn't feel that way to me anymore. So I don't like that. It's not working great for me.
They've also had 2 years to kind of hone in on their tactics and understand their opponents,
True.
right?
Yep.
So
They've learned.
There's a learning curve there where you don't understand at all how you're supposed to fight them to getting to a spot where you can actually hold your own.
It's true. They've learned about the weak spots in their armor, about the technology they use. They've certainly learned. That's true.
I think they were also caught off guard at the beginning of the series. Like they didn't know these guys were such a threat, so they just kind of could come at them, and now they're just a bit more prepared. And I think the arrogance that we talked about in Star by Star is part of the Jedi way. And that's what I felt at the beginning, is they were too arrogant to know something was really a threat. So maybe they just were properly scared a little bit. And they had a plan for the Voxen. I don't know. I'm not as worried about that
As usual, I'm the biggest critic.
Well, is there anything else so far in the first 9 books that hasn't worked for you, K2? But besides the fact that they're killing off your babies one by one.
Besides, the fact that they killed somebody named Anakin Solo off the book. That's my biggest anger point, certainly. That they're messing with my babies. But honestly, no, I kind of just read it for what it is. So I don't actually... I mean, it's Scott's job, right? And Matt's job to critique a story from their other podcasts. And I read to see what they tell me. So I don't catch a lot of the stuff that's as annoying. I think that it did take me a while to get used to the Yuzhan Vong, but I'm very interested. I'm assuming it's going to pay off. So even though I appreciate Scott's position, I'm giving the story the benefit of the doubt. I really like how they hate technology, and they're very into nature. They're get that thing out of my way. They'll whap somebody's iPad out of their hands, and they only want to use the Yamasks and the Voxens as weapons. I think there's just some cool things to them. I don't still totally get them, but part of it's because I think, especially at the beginning, I read through their chapters too fast. I was skipping really fast. So in that sense, Scott is right for me, but I'm also like, I don't care. Because I assume I'm going to really, I want to really hate them or I want to really understand them. One of the two.
The technology thing is cool. It feels like that's shifting to me
Right?
a little in some characters, that they seem less
Scott,
concerned about it.
I think by the end of the series, you're either going to be fully like me and think Nominor is one of the greatest characters in the history of Star Wars, or you're absolutely going to hate him one way or
Could
the
be
other.
both.
From here on out. It could be.
But could we think he's a great character and still hate him?
Absolutely.
You could.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one thing that's there's not a lot that's bugged me like overarching, but some stuff that I'm starting to roll my eyes at a little bit is the constant Jedi arguments. The Anakin.
Oh, that's Scott's favorite part.
R.I.P. Anakin. But it's like, oh my gosh, here goes Jason and Anakin again. Or, oh, Luke's holding a meeting and Kip Duron's going to interrupt and say something. Yep, it's good. It's happening again. That stuff's getting a little old. But when you've got 19 books, I suppose you can do a few of those.
The arguments haven't moved a lot, right? I wouldn't mind them if the arguments moved a lot.
It's the same thing. Kip's like, we need to be action oriented. Luke's like, we need to wait and see. Okay, fine.
Well, like you said, Matt, in your last episode, like, you'd think that Luke would have a handle on this by now. Like, get rid of this guy, or get everybody on board.
Chance
like,
after chance after
right.
chance.
It's been 2 years of these arguments, and we cannot come to some kind of a consensus or anything, so...
Kip Duron definitely has 18 lives when it comes to Luke.
Wait, does Kip get his own book?
Kip had some books before the New Jedi Order.
Oh.
They weren't really his own
like-
book, but he was one of the
Don't
main
say you like
characters
Kip.
in those books.
Don't say you like
I
it.
kind of like Kip.
He has his moments. He does. He has his moments.
It's not as a person. I'm not inviting him over to Thanksgiving, Scott. But like, I like the
Yeah.
role he
Yeah.
plays because I think he breaks up some interesting dynamic. And sometimes when he swoops in, I'm like, yeah, welcome back. I don't know. There's something about him in this that I like. And I wouldn't mind getting like a book on him. I mean, we have 19 books. I'm like, do you think we could get... Anyway, I don't want to like go on a date with him.
Ganner
He
is
has
right
some moments
there.
in this.
Ganner's
he
right
has
there.
some moments in this Dark Journey book that are kind of important for him. So
More important
Jay,
than
how about
hit
you?
on a 19-year-old?
Anything not working this second time around?
I touched on it in one of my earlier episodes, just how the Yuzavong were very bland at first and very hard to discern between and now we're at the point where their names, you're seeing the different casts that they're in, the whatever attachments they have, like, so there's a lot more description going into their appearance, so you can actually tell that they're very, very different. But overall, it's, I still love it. I never really had a problem with these books to begin with. And when these books came out, having a non-dark Jedi Sith bad guy was amazing, because every other book, that's pretty much what you deal with. It boils down to, are they a fallen Jedi? Are they a dark Jedi? Are they some sort of dark force user? And it was like, okay, like, you have an entire galaxy out here. Find something else. And this is completely off the charts with what they went with.
Do we not have any Dark Jedi or
We had
Sith?
two in this book.
Well, in the last episode, or in the last book, we had Lomi, Plo, and Woke.
Right. And I can't figure out what Vergier's story.
Oh, we'll get to her later.
boy.
We'll get to her later.
We'll get to her, and everyone will say,
Oh. Spoiler alert, I'm going to say, well.
I did actually want to talk about Lomi, Plo, and Welk, because they were apparently at Dathomir. And Lomi Plo is a Night Sister, and Tennille Kaz from Dathomir. And I'm like, so... I actually found it funny when Lomi Plo was like, well, where were the Jedi when they invaded Dathomir? I was like, they were fighting. They were holding them back. Like, where were you? Where were all the Night Sisters? Like, what were you guys doing? Why aren't you riding up on your Rancors? Like, what were you doing?
I think one of the things I really liked about the Yuuzhan Vong and what they did, though, strategically is using the Peace Brigade and humanity against the Jedi, which I thought was a really clever thing. And watching humanity turn on itself, well, not just humanity, the New Republic turn on itself, was really interesting to watch, right?
What's really interesting to watch is K2 going through her house. I'm trying to exactly figure out where she's going.
I was so hot in the back room. And then the front of the house, there's too many cars. In the back of the house, all the neighbors. So now I'm back sitting. It was too warm. Feel free to edit that out.
So this is one of my favorite stories in any Star Wars, but there are times where it delves a little too hard sci-fi for me. It's one of the things that happens toward the end of the series that is really one of the only things I don't like about the series. We obviously will get there in time, but yeah, that's the only thing is sometimes I think it's a little too hard sci-fi. I like when Star Wars is more soft sci-fi.
What do you mean by that? Like how Star Trek gets really science-y?
Yes. When
like we were talking about with the hydrogen, whatever.
Sure,
reactant.
there's that.
Skipped right over it.
I still say the
good boy
Dovin basals, however you want to pronounce them. The fact that these things create tiny little black holes, like why doesn't? Yeah, I just can't picture
Where
that.
do they go?
Why doesn't everything get sucked into them?
Is there just like a void
kind
of
of
missiles floating around and laser bolts, like bouncing around in this place?
They're all transported outside of the galaxy.
Yeah, it's weird.
The Dovin Basal has kind of become like the Swiss Army knife of the Yuuzhan Vong. It's like, well, they just anytime they have to explain something that's kind of weird, they just go, oh, just the Dovin Basal like reacts, and then it's like
a lazy mechanism to get rid of
it pulls them out of hyperspace.
Like the Force for the Jedi.
It does everything they need it to. Yeah, it's kind of the Force for the Jedi. It's like it's their sensors.
So we've talked about everything that isn't working so far. Some of the big things that have happened so far. Obviously, Chewie's death, Anakin's death, Jason getting captured, Coruscant falling. Matt, I know for you and I, the end of our boy Borsk. Borsk is gone. Pour one out.
Farewell.
He killed more Vong than any Jedi has so far. So.
And how fitting.
Love Borsk.
How fitting.
I mean, we've been with Borsk. Think about it. We've been with Borsk since 1991 in the Heir to the Empire trilogy. And then in the chronology of the books, he first appeared in X-Wing Rogue Squadron, which takes place before the Heir to the Empire
it's like 3
trilogy.
or 4 years after Return of the Jedi.
He's been around for 24 years in the Legends timeline.
And he's such a fascinating character, right? Like, all he wanted to do was to get to the top of the government. So he gets to the top of the government, and what happens? Coruscant's invaded under his watch. But then what does he do? He still goes out as a hero by blowing up 25,000 Yuuzhan Vong or whatever. So he's just such a fascinating character. I've loved him.
He really is too. And but even Leia says that. She's like, I've dealt with him for this many years, and I still don't know what game he's playing. I just know I don't trust him. and just when you think you figured him out, he does the complete opposite thing. Like in Star by Star, where he's calling Han and Leia and saying, no, like, I actually want you to, like, I'm endorsing you guys. You know, I'm stood in front of the entire Senate and said, hey, I'm endorsing the Jedi, and they're right, even though I've been kind of on the fence about it this whole time. Like, and everyone was just like, where did that come from?
Man knows how to read a room.
Too late, though. Too late.
Yeah,
exactly.
Too late. Yep.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, more with our new Jedi Order Roundtable. I'm Aaron Motes. You're listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. Thank you for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. And if you're a fan who'd like to meet other Legends buffs, you can check out Legends Con this September 9th and 10th in Burbank, California. LegendsCon is a fan-run convention focused on celebrating the books, comics, games, and other media from the old Star Wars Expanded Universe. And it's hosted by the Legends Consortium, a fan-run organization that wants to bring together fans to celebrate Legends in a positive environment. It will feature vendors, artists, and authors from the old EU, including special guests Randy Stradley, Matthew Stover, Karina Betchko, Sean Stewart, Barbara Hambley, and Abel G. Pena. LegendsCon is open to all ages and will be held September 9th and 10th, 2023, at the Marriott Convention Center in Burbank, California. Proceeds from the event will be donated to the Peter Mayhew Foundation. Tickets are on sale now through Eventbrite, and you can provide additional support through Kickstarter or Ko-fi.com. For more information on LegendsCon, visit legends-con.com. Check out @legends_con on Twitter and Instagram, or @Legends Consortium on Facebook and Tumblr. Once again, that's LegendsCon, coming September 9th and 10th in Burbank, California. Welcome back to the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. I'm Aaron Moats, and I'm joined by Kat, Jay, Matt, Scott, and K2 as we talk about the first half of the New Jedi Order series. The two big things, really, No, not really. The one big thing, really, in the New Jedi Order series is the Jedi trying to come to terms with how they are going to interact with the galaxy. Scott, you alluded to it before. It's mostly personified by the debates between Jason and Anakin. Well, now, Anakin's gone. Jason has been captured. Kat, I'll ask you, how do you think this internal debate with the Jedi will manifest itself, if it does, going forward? Or does the debate change?
Man, I feel like there's definitely gonna be a rift in half of them saying we should have taken action sooner and we maybe could have dealt with this. We could have all gone in to try and find the Voxel and taken them out, and we could have had a huge strike force do that. Or on the other side, we shouldn't have gone after them at all. We should have really planned and replanned and really thought about it more. And so I think there's going to be a huge rift. I think that usually grief and like big events like this are make or break. I think this is one of those big moments, and I think it's going to break them. I don't necessarily think it'll be that big unifying event.
Oh,
So
and
no
K2,
sunshine
you
for
thought it
Kat.
was going to be
No,
a unified
no.
event on the last
My
episode.
heart has been destroyed.
She's
You've
devastated.
been conditioned. Troy Denning has just beaten you down.
I got the love interest that I have been waiting 9 books for, and then they crush it into the dirt. So now, now it's all over.
Harry.
I don't believe it.
I was gonna say, I
don't
feel
believe
like
it.
you should have been
I
prepared
don't know
for
if
this
Justin
reading
and Matt and
the
Aaron are
Game of
playing
Thrones
coy.
series.
I don't know if Justin
This
and
was
Matt.
supposed to be our break from that.
I don't know if Justin and Matt and Aaron are playing coy, but I don't believe Anakin's dead. Maybe I've just been beaten to death by George R.R. Martin. But if you don't see someone die on the page, you cannot trust that they're dead. And
And the more
You
people
don't think
that
you
mention
saw
it-
Anakin die on
No.
the
They
page?
saw his body.
Yeah, well, they have his
yes,
body.
they do have his
but,
body
I
in a
mean,
husk. And I believe he was doing a lot of things with the Force that we don't ever see that I've never seen
Fair.
anybody do.
It's
And I
like,
think he
Remember,
kind of,
it's like John.
Frodo kind of
Yes.
looked like a husk in Return of the King after Shelob and everything.
right. So
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of ways this could happen, and I'm probably just going to look like a complete idiot when I finished our journey. I'm like, well, yeah, he's still dead, but I'm sticking with it. There's just so many things that point to him not actually being dead. For one, at the end, the guard is holding him as a body shield and threatening to like cut him open. as if that would save his life somehow. Why would that save his life?
And then Anakin winks to everybody.
If he's already dead, why is threatening to cut him going to save this guy? Right?
And his last words were ghost or Grey Wind or something. So I'm sure
when Anakin, quote unquote, dies, it's like the Force goes out of him. But he was like, I mean, the Force. The book is called Star by Star. It was like the Force just like burned him up.
So I
right?
have a question for you. Then is Leia just faking it?
No, I think whatever the Force did to Anakin feels like he expired.
That he's gone.
And
Yeah, gone in the Force, not
That's
in.
fair.
and also I think it's possible that the Yuuzhan Vong have some sort of, technology that can mask them somehow. Because Jaina, again, a few pages, 20-ish pages into the new book, she has a similar sense of not being able to sense Jason, that he seems gone. And I'm just not convinced. That's all I'm saying. I'll probably look like an idiot, but there are so many things in this story they've set up Anakin specifically to do that I'm not seeing it. Sorry. You're so happy at how stupid I'm going to look in 2 books. I'm glad everyone's so happy at how stupid I'll look.
I think I said it, but when I got to the part, I wasn't even sad because I was sure that he wasn't dead. I was just like, I kept reading, and then I had to kind of go back as I go. I was you for sure. I was like, there's no.
Well, no one scroll down to the bottom of the Star by Star Wikipedia page because it'll ruin exactly what happens.
Wikipedia is dangerous,
toward
man.
the end of it. I mean,
I know
There's a main
know.
character in this new Jedi Order series. I won't say who, but if you look up a certain main character, just the title of that character's page is a significant spoiler.
Oh, really?
Significant. So just be super careful.
It's Anakin Solo, and it says
Anakin Solo is alive. That's the title.
So is Jesus.
He's my Elvis.
Scott
parentheses,
was right.
Force Ghost.
Scott was right.
So, well, Scott, one of the things that we talked about when we did Destiny's Way, again, one of your favorite things up to that point was the debate between Anakin and Jason. If Anakin is dead, and since Jason has been captured, do the Jedi continue this debate?
Well, I think the debate that they're having is one that they've used those 2 characters to have that debate so far. But that debate will be thrust to the very forefront of discussion as the Jedi now determine what to do. It's kind of always been what they've been talking about. Do we take action? Do we sit back? What do we, we can't use force. We can't be aggressive. That's the way to the dark side, all that stuff. But they're going to be refaced with it now, right? Coruscant's taken. Luke even says, I don't have the quote here, but it's something like, it's up to the Jedi now to save the New Republic. Now that Coruscant has fallen. He says something, almost that exact sentence in Star by Star. And so that question is still going to be thrust. Okay, it's up to you. So offensive then, right? Or not? And so I think they're all, that argument is going to be thrust in front of everyone, right? And so you could have like almost Anakin disciples and Jason disciples, right? And the Jason party and the Anakin party, and they fight or something, right? But I could see that. Again, though, I don't think Jason or Anakin are gone for good. So,
well, you have Kip, which is a different.
Yeah, Kip and Luke are.
He's like on Anakin's side to the nth degree. Yeah. He's the
Anakin's
but they
the
could
middle.
all pivot.
Yeah.
They could be pivoting, right? Where they all start to take different positions. I think Anakin's death is going to affect everyone, right? People that
When
weren't
it
even close
happens.
to him. And
Sorry.
in the next series in 25 years, when he actually dies for real. But I don't know. I think everyone could shift a little, and they could reverse positions. They could,
Or take a position, period,
Anakin and
Someone
Jason
might-
are here,
Yeah.
right? And maybe it pushes everyone to be more extreme,
Right.
right?
This next book, you start to see where Jaina's mind is going. And
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Kat, I'll ask you. Toward the end of Star by Star, Jaina uses the dark side of the Force. will we see repercussions of this in the future? And do you think other Jedi could follow Jaina's lead?
Well, posing the question that way, I definitely think that the lines are going to be more blurred because they're like, if a solo kid can use the dark side, and
all right, let me phrase it in a different way. When Jaina becomes the new Dark Lord of the Sith,
I swear to God, first of all, Aaron, if that happens, I burn my books, I light them on fire, and yes, they're on my Kindle, and I burn them anyway.
Gotcha.
She's going to go the way the Yuuzhan Vong.
Go ahead,
no more
Kat.
technology, just nothing.
No more technology. Only, Kat, please answer the question. Forgive me for interrupting.
I definitely think that she's going to have a hard battle back, and I think that she's probably going to take some of the younger Jedi with her because they have been putting so much faith in the 3 solo kids to begin with, and especially she feels like she was the one that had her head on her shoulders a little bit more. She wasn't as back and forth. She wasn't as much into the arguments. So I think a lot of people put trust in her. So when she goes off the deep end a little bit, they're going to be like, absolutely, she has the right to go off that deep end, and we need to follow her there. So I definitely think she's probably going to be taking a couple people on that journey with her. So I definitely see some darkness in her future and some more. And that's why I think we're going to get that split between the Jedi even more, because they're just going to, some of them are going to be reactive versus proactive in how that change happens.
And Jaina's interesting too, because she's not like Jason and Anakin, where their whole identity is wrapped up in being a Jedi and being the right Jedi. Being a Jedi is like the second most important title in her life, right? She loves being a pilot.
Yeah.
That's really what she wants to do.
And she's a doer.
She could
too.
She's
a doer. Like, she's not a philosophizer. She sees the thing, problem, and she just goes and does it, right?
Very much like her dad in that way.
Right.
She is the one that's most like Han. And you definitely see that in a lot of ways. But she's so different in that she's not your typical Jedi. She's very adept at using the Force. And, you know, she could kick anyone's butt with a lightsaber. But if she could pick between that lightsaber and an X-Wing, we know what she would pick.
But we also know, too, that she's now suffering PTSD, because she talked about that, how the deaths that of her wingmates have been piling up. And then when Anakin may or may not have died, something in her broke. And she's feeling that, all of that grief now, all of that responsibility. And she's got PTSD.
All right, so the little timer icon popped up on my Google Meet. It says we only got about 10 minutes left. So the one thing I wanted to ask you guys here toward the end, Vergere, she's an enigma. If she's your favorite, Kat, why? What is it you like about Vergere, and what do you expect to see from her in the future?
Walked into that one.
On purpose. Anytime we see the Yuuzhan Vong's point of view, I could care less. I don't like their machinations are not very interesting to me. But the minute you bring Vergere into those scenes and you see her maneuvering and manipulating and walking between so many different ways of life so fluidly, is so interesting to me. She is able to make these characters believe in whatever she is displaying at the time that she's doing that. She is helping Mara with her tears, maybe, not really. She's helping the Yuuzhan Vong, but then also helps Jason kill the Boxen. Like, she is playing so many different roles, and I just love to see her work. I think she is very interesting in just watching her play so many different parts. Do I think she's going to be very bad at the end of all of this? Absolutely, and I'm very excited for it. I love me a villain.
So I won't ask Jay and Matt this, because you guys do know where Vergere ends up, but how are you enjoying reading her this second time around?
She reminds me a bit of, if we're going back to Game of Thrones, of Varys and her ability to play all sides and do all of those different things. I'm frustrated by her, for sure. Can't quite figure her out. Because I do know where things end up in the end. Can't remember how they get there, though. So I just shrug my shoulders, and we'll just see what happens.
I've basically attributed her to one of the great mysteries of the Force. And, you know, what she is, where she's from, doesn't matter.
Scott, how about you?
Yeah, I feel sorry for your listeners that keep having to listen to Song of Ice and Fire references, but I think Varys is a good one. I feel like, just like Varys has his ideas and this whole motivation of a separate plot, a completely different game than pretty much everyone else is playing, I feel like Vergere has some motivations that come from before she was even captured and made a familiar, maybe to protect the planet where her people come from, something like that. I feel like her motivations are way off the map from anything we're even thinking, and the game she's playing is using everybody to get to that end goal. But what that is, I have no real idea.
And K2?
I mean, she's definitely a Force user, right, as we learn. And I think that every time she's done anything for one of our heroes, it was clearly, in my mind, veiled behind something that she's going to gain from, right? Like, she saves Jason so she can turn him over to the Yuuzhan Vong. Or she didn't save him because she liked him, and then she was crying, and it's all a game. She's playing a really, really good game. She may be slightly confused. Do we know how old she is?
I know how old she is.
Do I know how old
You
she
do not.
Go to that Wikipedia page.
I won't. I will not go there for her because I know I will get destroyed or ruined. But like, I think she's ultimately, in my opinion, bad for our heroes. I think that every step she's taken that looks good for us is because it advances her. I don't know what her game is, but as a Dark Force user, as some sort of Sith adjacent, I don't know if there are any Sith running around, but I don't like her. I love her, and I hate her at the same time because I feel like she's just going to kill another one of my babies.
The whole saving Mara thing just still is kind of throws me for a loop.
But she did. But did end up almost killing the baby,
did.
which would have totally brought
conditions.
Luke and
Did she know
Laura.
that?
Did she know that?
Well,
right.
At that point in time, Mara, it wasn't until the next book that Mara and Luke knew that Mara was pregnant. So did Vergere know that Mara was pregnant?
Do the tears have... Oh, it's a family podcast.
Possibly.
Do the tears have qualities that cause babies?
Oh, like fertility tears?
Fertility tears.
Well, now you're getting into a subject that Star Wars doesn't really touch on. So
We're getting a
I
little
would say
Star
no.
Trekky here. Careful.
Yeah.
Caution.
I will say that the first time I read the series, and one of the things I do remember the first time I read the series, is I thought it was the most interesting thing I thought about Vergere is when she uses the Force, and Jason and Jaina can sense that she used the Force. How? You know, she's with the Yuuzhan Vong. They are absent in the Force. All of their technology is absent in the Force. They've come from outside of the galaxy. But they have someone with them who can touch the Force, but it seems like she has not let them know that. That was what was the most interesting thing about Vergere to me the first time I read it.
Would they trust her if they knew she was a Force user?
Who's to say?
Do they trust her now? I don't even know.
Didn't we get confirmation in one of the earlier books that she is from a planet in this system? She didn't come with the Yuuzhan Vong, or she did, but they got her from a planet in this system, didn't they?
That's the story she comes with anyway.
Okay.
That's what she says. So, I also think that she is totally going to just take Jason under her wing and...
Ba-dum-bum.
and totally manipulate his like non-committal and make him really make some questionable choices going forward. I don't think it's just going to be a Jason's captured and we get to do whatever we want. I think she's definitely going to be manipulating the heck out of that kid.
Man, Kat is just our little dark rain cloud.
Yeah.
And I know Vergier is supposed to have feathers and be like kind of bird-like. I still think of her as a bunny. I don't know why. I don't know why. I can't get around it. That's what I think of every
Anakin's
time.
alive.
Yeah.
Vergier's a bunny.
I can't. I think the way she was described, I just can't get through it.
Scott, do yourself a favor.
She's an ostrich.
Google
I don't
Vergier
want to be spoiled.
and just hit the images.
Okay.
Hit the images. That's all, and you'll see what Vergier looks like. She is definitely avian.
I don't know how to read, so images is my default.
I was gonna say they describe her as avian features with a simian face. So
Bunny.
like, monkeys with a bird.
Bunny.
Look,
A feathered
I think
monkey.
we got the wrong book,
with you,
guys.
Scat.
I just
I'm
think
with
it's a
you.
knockoff version. They're like, yeah, bunny-like, and everybody's not dead. It's fine.
It's just what I think of. I don't know.
I mean, there was a Jedi Master in the book that I last covered that was kind of
Yes.
bunny-like.
One last round, real quick, 30 seconds or less. I'm going to ask a question to the newbies who haven't read this before, and then a slightly different question for Jay and Matt. What are you hoping to see in the next 2 or 3 books? Scott, I'll start with you.
I'm hoping to see the Jedi rally around together. I'm hoping to see, we didn't talk at all yet about the Yomask discovery that they made in this book, which I think is huge. That could totally turn the tide of the war, but I expect the Yuuzhan Vong will counter it somehow. But I hope to see some military tactics where they're kind of figuring out, like one-upping each other, figuring out how to get over each other on the technology side. That's what I hope to see, and I hope to see Jason rescued because he's the best. That's it.
Kat, how about you?
I want more love. I want these characters to remember why they fight, and it is for each other. I want these character moments. I want them to see, like, look, we gotta come together. We gotta do this as a group, and we gotta use everybody's abilities. But first of all, we gotta love each other, and I want to see more makeout scenes. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know how much
I love it.
love you're going to get, but in the next book, Jaina definitely gets some propositions from plenty of people. So,
Ooh, let's go, Jaina.
K2, how about you? What are you expecting to see in the next 2 or 3
wanna
stories?
I want to see Vicky Shesh like brutally murdered. I want her dead. Yes, thank you, Scott. I want her gone. I do want to see a little bit more Kip. I do. I that's my boyfriend Kip. Scott, I know you love him so much.
It's a family podcast.
I would like to see Jaina end up. I think her journey is the most interesting. Her and Mara in many ways. I know Mara's kind of in the backseat, but like, I think Jaina's journey is, I've said this before, but like the human nature of it, I feel like because she's going through it and in touch with everything, I'm excited to see where she goes and what she ends up doing. And if they murder her, then expect more anger as I go through my coverage of the series.
Matt, I'm not going to ask you what you want to see in the next couple books, but will you be reading them a little differently this time, knowing what is going to happen in the next couple books
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking for clues.
for the end of the
Foreshadowing.
series?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jay, are you the same?
Honestly, it's been so long since I've read it. I'm not even sure what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to enjoy the ride. Hope there's a hell of a lot more Force lightning.
Yes.
Maybe the resurrection of Emperor Palpatine, or finding out someone is related to him. Stuff like that.
Oh my God, stop.
Like Vicky Shesh, might be great granddaughter. Just saying.
Thank you for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. On the next episode, Scott and I will talk about the next book in the new Jedi Order series, Dark Journey by Elaine Cunningham. You can look forward to that episode coming out on August 18th. Until then, if you have a question or comment for the show, you can email me at swlegendslounge@gmail.com or send me a tweet at legendslounge1. Thank you so much for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. I'm Aaron Motes. May the Force be with you. And remember, there's always a bit of truth in legends.